America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up, the approval of the agenda in the meeting minutes from June 6th.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, agenda's been approved. And do we have a motion to approve the minutes from June 6th, 2022?
Motion to approve the minutes for June 6th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous approval. Okay, school committee chairperson comments. I don't have no comments from the chairperson and no comments from the vice chairperson. So we can move on to community comments. Any community comments in the room? Sam, anyone raising their hand on the phone?
Not today.
All right. Don't even know we're started yet. All right, why don't we go ahead and move over to our student comments?
All right, well, happy summer. And first off, I just want to say that we'll be getting a new junior in September, who will be my partner in the school committee, student committee meeting. And starting off, I want to start off with the freshman and new student orientation in Nipmuc. And that's on August 24th from 5 to 7 p.m. And it'll just answer all the questions about Nipmuc, introduce students and parents to the building, and give students the chance to follow their schedule around. That's on August 25th, 6:30 to 7:30. And it's an ice cream social, so they can, have fun and get to know their new school.
Excellent. Great, well, thank you very much. All right, I'm gonna flip over to Dr. Cohen, Superintendent, Administrative comments.
Hi, everybody. Happy summer and preparation for the next school year, just like that, middle of summer. So hope everyone's had a good summer so far. And we'll stay cool as we can in here, right? So I'd like to start off, my first agenda item is related to the school committee clerk. As you're all aware, our longtime school clerk, Kelly, took a position in another town. And as a result, we have an opening for a clerk position, which has been posted. We have Lauren here tonight, who is covering the minutes for tonight. Thank you, Lauren. And she is been doing it. She did it for many, many years, right? Long time ago. Yeah. So she's a resident expert here. And right next to her, we have Alyssa Lacasse. And what I wanted to do is I'd like to recommend her to the position. She's applied for the position and she's here to shadow tonight, but she has stepped in this past year as admin assistant in the central office. So right when you come in the door, she's the first amazing person you see when you come into central office and picking up those phone calls as well. And she supports our Office of Teaching and Learning, and she supports our business office and lots of other things too that come up. So she's here to shout out tonight, but I would highly recommend her to that position, and we would need a motion and vote for that for the school committee to approve that.
Do we have a motion to approve Alyssa to the school committee clerk position?
Oh, geez. Motion to approve. Let me make sure I get it. Alyssa
Yep.
Lacasse. Okay. Okay, great. Motion to approve Alyssa Lacasse as our new school committee clerk.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Congratulations.
Welcome. It is an honor. Yay. I'm telling her it's great. It's so much fun.
Wow. Does that mean you're happy to fill the board over? Okay, go.
He said it's so much fun. All right. So what I wanted to do at this meeting, and then also leading into the next meeting as well, is talk about a lot of the back to school preparations that have been going on. Our main focus really What we've been working on has been related to hiring the number of open positions. So I wanted to give just some highlights related to that tonight and some changes that we've had over the course of that. At a future meeting, at the next meeting, I'll talk more about the facilities, and Jay will help me out with that, and we'll give some highlights. I know I've shared a couple pictures and a few things that have been going on, but I'm going to focus on the hiring process this year so far. So I'm going to kind of read through. I wanted to make sure I captured a lot of the information for all of you here. So if you could bear with me. Since the end of the school year, we've had our administrators, custodians, tech department, and admin assistants hard at work all summer long on very many different tasks going on. Sometimes you run into someone and they say, hey, do administrators work the whole year? Yeah, and lots of other people do too. So thank you to all of them. And some of the changes this summer, I'm going to talk about the open positions. So we have been actively filling close to, I think I put 41 in there when I counted it a few times. It's kind of a moving number, but for all of our teachers and staff and some transfers from one building to another, all the movement that's going on, it's around 40 open positions that we have been working on. To give you a sense of some typical years, probably the highest that I ever saw, at least on the teachers end, was about 20 in a year. And this is more than teachers too, but when I would do the new teacher orientation in the past, and sometimes it'd be as low as like 5 in the district or 6. And so, we've talked about the fact that we've had lots of movement in education just across the board for lots of different reasons. So as of today, we have formally filled all but about 5 to 7 positions. Some are in the last phases of that process right now. And I really want to thank all the staff members and administrators for their time that they've committed to the hiring process this year. I think I talked about this at the end of last year. We instituted updated protocols in our hiring, and it involves more people on the interview committees, as well as including performance tasks and or demo lessons, depending on the role as part of the process. So as a result, the last stop in the whole process, I get to meet all of the new hires that we have and chat with them and learn about them. And so as a result, the candidates that are being brought forward are just absolutely outstanding to add to the staff that we have. I've just been so impressed and so thankful for all the hard work that our teams have put in that lengthy process that we have. So as a result of various changes in staffing and movement, as well as some changes in student enrollment, I have a few highlights I want to point out. And I've worked closely with the district leadership team on what's the best way when we have different openings to have some movements in meeting needs if we have some changes just across all of the district. So first, I'm happy to share with Chief Kersey in Mendon, and also right at the end of the last school year, he made some movements with SRO staffing, but we're working on that. We'll be working on a new MOU, but we'll be bringing forward the SRO back full-time. Officer Steve Cinco will be with us again for 5 days a week. So in the last couple of years, there were some scheduling issues. I mean, he wanted to be there, and but it just was more scheduling with the whole department. And so now he's going to be there all 5 days, and so we're really excited about that. It's something that we didn't know mid-year if we'd be able to make that happen last year. And so he'll be stationed, going back between Clough and Misco Hill like he had in the past. So we're excited about that. And actually, the police department's been doing different trainings already in the school and in Misco just the past week or so. The second, we made some adjustments in our contractual lines, something we've done before, to operational lines to support the addition of a BCBA, who can support some of the increased behavioral concerns that we've seen at the elementary level in particular that we talked about last year. In the past, we were bringing in consultants to meet some of the needs, and we're able to move things around to have a more full-time person. So that's one of the new staff positions that we worked on, which we're excited about. The third area, we have the addition. We talked with the ESSER grant funds to bring in an EL teacher to meet the increasing needs of our English language learners. And as a result of we used to just have 2 teachers, and they would split between the elementary schools and then middle and high school. And so now we can minimize their travel across the schools. They're going to be 2 are going to be based out of the elementary school, and then we have a secondary level teacher that will be able to be based out of the middle school and then travel to the high school as well. So I think that's really going to help and maximize time with our students. Something we're doing is, in the past we used to post for our ABA techs and our paraprofessionals specific to buildings. And what we're trying to do is create a more broad district program of services, and so we can have more flexibility throughout the year if there's changes or year to year. And so now we're starting to post these positions more as district-wide positions and come in, and then we can assign them to the different areas of need. And that's already allowed for more flexibility. We also, Jen did a great job of offering out to our current staff members of requests where they might want to transfer and move in between when we noted areas that we needed to match staff members up with students. And so we have people were able to say, hey, I'm looking for a change here and have better matches for this coming school year. Something I think I had given you an update a few weeks ago, or maybe about a month ago, related to this. As we had some movement in our world language, we had a staff member who was part-time world language and part-time in another role. That staff member is now a classroom teacher, was able to get a classroom teaching job full-time. And when we were hiring for the world language, we weren't getting any applicants whatsoever. And really, the 0.4 that we had wasn't quite meeting the needs for the numbers of students for taking world language at the middle school. And this is something that I mentioned in my entry plan that was coming up, was the fact that we had this commitment years ago of expanding world language, which we've been working on and expanding slowly, but we wanted to continue that process. And so what we ended up doing is posting for a full-time, making that whole within the salary line and making that whole. And as a result, we were able to fill it in. We're in the last, I'll be meeting with that candidate relatively soon for a French position there. So we're excited about that. So that was a change that I think will be beneficial for all. Added into the budget a couple of years ago, we had the position of instructional coach. Originally, we had put in for 2 instructional coaches, and then we ended up reducing that ask to 1 instructional coach, and it had originally been, last year was the first year scheduled between the 2 elementary schools, about 50-50 and rotating in between, which we're finding is really difficult between the 2 elementary schools because of the distance and some of the schedules. But we did that last year, and then we had that opening this year. What we decided was, instead of it being just purely an elementary instructional coach position, it gave us an opportunity to reframe it as a district instructional coach position. So then we'd be able to, each year, wherever the greatest need is for support, we could use an instructional coach in that need. And so for this coming year, our plan is, and we just, I don't know if we finalized the hiring, but we are in the final processes of hiring. The instructional coach will be based out of Clough and helping out in grades 5 and 6 at MISCO, and that's just a couple minutes away from one another, and that will help with some of the transition there. We had the assistant principal, and I know I shared information out with you regarding this. We had the assistant principal that was added into the budget this past year, and our original proposal was like a 50-50 split, kind of like that original instructional coach proposal. And when we went through the process, we ended up wanting to propose something different than what we did back in March. So I'm going to explain kind of the reasoning for that, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you might have related to it. From when we originally proposed in March to now, or in July, when we were completing the hiring process, there were a lot of changes that took place between Memorial and Clough. And so through the conversations with elementary principals regarding the split of the role between the 2 schools, as they started to screen candidates, and because of the changes in each school, we were starting to have challenges finding highly qualified candidates to fill that kind of split role. And we found that it might be more appropriate to meet the needs of both schools to reallocate where the AP would be based out of Memorial. So that would be their home base. We have an instructional coach at Clough based out of there, and then go to Clough as a support whenever the principal's out or something was going on, and I'll explain some of the reasons for that. Originally, when we proposed the assistant principal position, was based on a number of factors. The factors that I presented included supervision, educator evaluation, student discipline, student safety, administrative management, instructional leadership. We had principals came in and gave stories of what it's like in a typical day right now in elementary schools, where if you're one administrator and you have to be in 5 different places at one time, and how to address obviously student needs that may come up as the first thing that you do. So at Memorial, the enrollment at Memorial is at least about a couple weeks ago when I last checked, I didn't check it this week, but was 501, and it's expected to continue increasing at Memorial. In comparison, at Clough, the Clough enrollment is 331. So there's a significant difference in the size of the 2 schools currently. Since March, we've had more than 10 new hires at Memorial, many of which we did not expect. We knew about a couple who were some retirements, but we've had more, which was unknown during that budgeting time. And one of the vacancies was a result of retirement, and that was our star teacher at Memorial, who had been there for a while and works with our students with the greatest needs. So all of the educators that are hired for these vacancies require more observations and meetings as part of the mandated educator evaluation system when you're a new hire coming in. And in addition, because a majority of our Spanish immersion is housed currently at Memorial, not all of it, but most of it right now, almost all of those teachers coming in were new from Spain, and we know that they're going to need additional transition support. And our assistant principal that we have hired has immersion background too, which is great as well. We also had moved in order to have 2 kindergarten classes and to meet the numbers that we had, which are a little bit lower at Mendon, along with Upton, and we added a kindergarten class for SI, but we had to house that at Memorial, and so that added another staff member to the roster at Memorial as well. So when we were going through all of this and going through the process, the team, including both principals, advocated and felt that the changes created additional needs for administration at Memorial that they didn't really realize at that time in March. Let's see. So some questions have come up about Clough. So like how are we meeting the needs of the students and some of the needs at Clough? So I mentioned a few of them already. So first, we've added the BCBA to support our elementary schools, which we didn't have mid-year when we came forward with the budget at that time. And that person will assist with training and with the behavioral needs of our students that we had mentioned some examples. Second, I mentioned that we didn't have the SRO. It was only part-time. We weren't sure if we'd have the SRO full-time. We now have SRO full-time who's there for helping with supervision and a drop-off, dismissal, etc. Third, we made the adjustment of basing the instructional coach who will be at that building. So one thing that happens when you have some of the staff who aren't classroom-based staff, other staff that like an instructional coach or a counselor, they're able to help out with other things that come up. Like if there's a crisis in the building, the teachers are in the classrooms and you have this team, this core team. So an instructional coach is someone, even though that's not their core role, of course, but they're there as part of that additional team that you can access. And so when you have some of the staff that are going like this, sometimes the member across both schools, sometimes the member's there, so we have a team chair, but it's half-time, so they're there, sometimes they're not. By basing people at a building, you have them more frequently, and they're able to be there if something happens. And so when I say a crisis, I mean some of the examples we have a student who was dysregulated and is leaving the classroom and running down the hall. So you need to make sure that the young student isn't running out of the building. So someone's going to go to the door there, someone's going to go here, the principal's here. So you need people who aren't in front of classes who are able to step in. That's what I mean. I don't want people to think there are major crises taking place in their school. So, but these are the things that we talked about last year that we just didn't have enough of that team. And so this helps to round out that team as well. And something that we didn't have at that time in mid-year as well is that we Liz Garden. We didn't know who the next principal was going to be. We have an experienced and seasoned principal who feels after, even though I know she hasn't been in there with the students, but she's worked in similar sized schools before without assistant principals, and she feels that she'll be able to address the needs of the building with this configuration of support that they had talked about. She's been included in all the conversations. I wouldn't have made a change. This was a collective conversation that we had numerous conversations with them of how we can, best fit everyone's needs from a district level. And so she feels like this would meet the needs as well. So at a future meeting, I'll bring forward our new AP, Lauren Chuk, at a future meeting. She just started on August 1st as she transitioned out of her other job. But she comes with years of experience as an AP. I mentioned experience with immersion, and she also spent the last year as our PD coach for ST Math at Memorial and Clough. So she's already familiar and has relationships with all of our teachers in both the schools, and was, beloved. So while she was looking to transition back, we had the opening, and she thought this would be the best place for her to work, especially when there were lots of other opportunities elsewhere. She knew it was a good fit for us. So I think that's on all of the major changes in the hiring. Only other thing, in addition to hiring, I want to mention that families will start to see an increase in communications. Probably, I know as a parent right now, I'm like, all right, when am I going to get the schedule for my son in another district? Like, when do we get those buses? When does that come out? I would just say that about 2 weeks before the start of school, so we have about another week or so, and then in those 2 weeks leading up, you'll get plenty of communication, and we're already starting to get some of them out, but we're finalizing the bus routes right now. And so my district communication, I know I plan to do that, the district newsletter, once I have all of those resources that I can kind of plug in and have them all in one spot for the district. So just to let you know, and I'll talk more about it at the next meeting, but that'll come out in the next week or so. So if people are looking for it, it's coming. But the calendar, if you're like, when's the first day of school? The calendar is on the website, so you can access that.
So that's a significant turnover. So
Yeah.
we have some new blood coming in. That's
We
pretty
do.
exciting.
Yeah.
I wonder how we can, not just to make sure nothing goes wrong, because that kind of turnover would alarm me if I were in charge of business.
Yeah.
But also make sure we understand what is going right.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice to have an update periodically on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it is the nature of education right now, and it's really a competitive market. So right now, you have people who say, I have this job, and it's in these openings across 5 different school districts. And we didn't used to have that. It used to be, once you got into a district, you're kind of there, you don't move. So it is different, and there's this sense around, I'll call it post-COVID. Can we do that? Maybe we're not post yet, but like after the last, right? Maureen, why did you say that? But after the last, couple of years too, that it's really triggered, people saying like, I was going to wait one more year for retirement. I'm going to do it now. And, last year was probably one of the toughest years I think we've had in education last couple of years. But what I'm excited about, and Cheryl will talk about it in the future, but, we have a really robust mentoring and new teacher orientation and induction program. And for us, our induction to the district begins the moment you start that hiring process. And that's why we wanted the protocols in place. That's why, we're working on having it be really a collaborative approach. So you're building those partnerships with our teachers. And I'm telling you, Lauren has to almost, kick them out of my office, because all I want to do is just keep talking to the new hires that we have, even though maybe we don't have enough time to do that. But I'm like, tell me more. That's interesting. And we just have really some amazing teachers coming in that you'll be excited to meet. So I'm excited about it. And the big difference too is we were able to, because there weren't budgetary issues this year at all, we weren't waiting. Like last year, we were hiring in the last week leading up to school. I mean, that was really challenging. A lot of people already had jobs and not a lot of applicants. So now we're getting a lot more applicants. We can do the whole rigorous process and really make the right decisions too. And we feel really good about where we're at right now. And so that's the advantage of having a really stable, budget.
I mean, just to keep the spirits up, and if it's a competitive environment for teachers, then we should have some stories coming back about how teachers are succeeding, what they're doing, and celebrate that.
Yeah.
Because we need to keep the passion alive there.
Yeah.
Having anybody drop off that's valuable would be very, very, very bad in this time.
I agree. And we've had some teachers who have been with us for a while that have taken on, other roles that we don't really have in the district. So we don't have additional, sometimes there isn't the growth. We try to build as much teacher leadership as we can. But some, I'm really excited. It's a great, I can't believe you're leaving Mendon-Upton, but I'm so happy for you. And I never would have, I've been in lots of different districts in my own career, and I've been encouraged to go to different districts as well. And, I want that growth, but so we've had some people moving on to, it's new roles for them, which is exciting. But we've been able to bring in new faces that I think are thrilled to be in Mendon-Upton. We have people who want to come and work in Mendon-Upton because of the reputation that we have. And it's a positive one, and people know, and they want to work here in comparison to other places.
Is there anything as part of the process that's giving you any pause? 40 head counts is a lot of turnover. It looks like it's about 25% of Memorial. Is there anything when you're doing exit interviews that you're stepping back saying, crap, this is something we need to fix, or hey, I need the school committee's help because this is an issue that popped up consistently as people were leaving? Is there anything that jumps out at you?
Well, that's a great question. And even though it could look concerning with the numbers, I'm not at first, that's a lot, but I'm not concerned. But we never used to have exit interviews. We've put that in place this year. So we are doing exit surveys and exit interviews. And so now with Lori Petty in the role in human resources, she's doing an outstanding job. And, Alyssa supports her as well at times. So we have been able to do some follow-up, and she'll be collecting that data for us. And, principals talk, and I talk, and people reach out to me as well. So we can kind of get a sense, of why people are leaving. It's been all different kinds of reasons. So, some people, there might be a request for leave of absence due to a personal reason.
Sure.
There might be a resignation because, teachers teaching's just, I wasn't sure last week, it's not for me. And you had others that were going on to different roles. So one thing to think about is creating those roles and opportunities, which we're always trying to do for our teachers here in that leadership piece, because you want to be able to grow. So that's something we're working on. And then if there are individual things that have, might come up with a unique instance, then we're following up on that at the building level.
Yeah.
A couple questions.
Yes,
So
sure.
the 5 to 7 positions that still haven't been filled, are any of those classroom teachers?
I saw 2 postings go up today, didn't I?
Yeah.
For both in the high school.
Yes, if you give me a second. I have a nurse assistant. We have a new opening at the high school, so we posted 2 positions because it's a science position that we're looking for. So we posted a biology position. We also posted physics because we could make a change based on of getting the best candidate within the schedule. So we posted both. It's only one. We're not filling 2, just so you know. But so we just posted that.
I'm just thinking
And it-
specifically, the elementary parents who are starting to worry about, is there going to be a classroom teacher in my kid's class right now? So that's sort of where that question came from.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think almost all of the class, maybe 95%, there may be one, at the elementary, have been filled. And so you'll have the name, but please, whoever's watching, don't be worried if it says TBD. We have some, when I say 5 to 7, who are in the process of being hired, but we can't give the name until they go through the hire process. So even though we've done the interviews and all of that reference checks, they haven't come to sign the contract piece. And so that's happening. So, but we also want to soon get the, by next week, get those schedules out, but there may be a couple that have the TBD, but really that's it. We have it looks like adjustment counselor position and school council position haven't been filled yet according to my chart. So that's kind of the range, yep. And periodically, we also have someone who lets us know, like, in the next couple of weeks of a change too.
And then my next thing is more of a request, I think, than a question. I'm wondering if we can have in one of our upcoming meetings, maybe a more in-depth discussion about discipline and safety in the school buildings. I feel like a lot of the new hires have come from sort of, I remember the impassioned speeches coming from the elementary school last year, and with the shift in the administrator and the AP and how that's going to be working. But I am a person who is not thrilled to hear that one of our responses to that is we're upping the presence of a police officer. So as we start thinking about this upcoming budget year and where our needs might be, I'd really love to have that conversation as sort of needs assessment. If that's someplace where people need more support and just, from my experience in schools, it's the boots on the ground support that's more effective and efficient when you're talking about student disciplinary concerns. So I'd really like to have a better understanding of what we're seeing. And I know you have the data because you have data for everything. So if we can have that conversation a little bit more proactively, I think, so we can look at some of those line items a little bit more closely as we move forward, just because, again, we've had this conversation over the last couple of years about the social emotional needs for students. We know last year was a tough year. A lot of it came out behaviorally, particularly at the elementary school. And, I just, coming from my perspective and my background, I'd rather see the people that we're putting forth into those situations be ones who are trained to work with those students, and will likely be more effective in terms of reducing the impact of the behaviors.
And I think over the years, we've been slowly adding those positions, when we're talking, everyone was consultants. So they were part-time. So the more we put that, bring those resources in where they really get to know the students, that's where we're seeing some improvements. And we haven't filled all of those positions, probably that, we have been in the request, like if we go to the requests that people put in last year and then what we haven't put forward. But I don't, to go to your SRO point, I don't want to give the impression that the SRO is getting involved in discipline in that case, because that's not, it's more about the presence and supervision outside. So that we told the stories of, Jan, when she was out doing drop-off dismissal, and she's there, but then something's happening here, and something's happening over here, and how can you be in 4 places? When you have an SRO who's visible, they're outside and they're there. And then when you have an additional staff person, like a BCBA on staff, which we never had before, they can then help work with the ABA techs and work on those plans on a more regular basis, as opposed to, I'm in this hour this week or this hour this week, they can support that. So the combination of these layers are meeting those needs, where you have principals that were saying, I can't be 10 people all at once. Absolutely. And so I don't want people to get the impression that SROs are in there for this one, because it's not, but it's they're out at recess. So that's a person who's out there and visible and able to, be in contact as well, which we, lacked this past year. Great point though. And I like to think too, some of the things that we're putting in place programmatically as well, and building programmatically, are going to help with some of the SEL support and continue to build that into our curriculum.
This might be a question for Jen Mannion, but your bullet number 5 around the 0.4 world teacher going to 0.1. We brought in a health teacher as well. So we've kind of rounded out, and this goes, I don't know what we're calling now, specials or extras or something like that. But one of the feedback I hear a lot is that we don't let the kids pick them until they get to 8th grade. So 5th, 6th, 7th graders kind of get thrown into whatever they get. Which, I think if a parent calls, there's usually a conversation or some flexibility. But well, now that we got a critical mass, this is something that we can think about going back and actually allowing some selection. And then I think at our level too, to allow us to get a better idea of what kids are interested in. If the health is through the roof, maybe you need 4 health teachers. If computer science is through the roof, maybe you need to invest in that area. And start to see where the interest is versus, kids going this 4th year music that doesn't really actually like music.
I don't, no one's here. I'm pretty sure when they do the selection, but I could be wrong.
It's 8th grade they get to pick. The other 3 grades,
They should be able to put in, because like you have kids who want technology and so they put in for technology. What I hear, so it's my understanding that they put in, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
What I hear is you can't always get, because there are certain blocks, like with music or different things, you can only get a certain number, so then you can't always get all of the ones that you want, so then you get put into the ones that you don't want.
All right, let's double check if you don't mind. It's feedback that I hear regularly, and I've seen personally.
That's good, and one thing that, if Jen was here, she would say, I have a list of other specials that we would like to have. Right, Jay? So we certainly have a list of it would be the perfect schedule for all students if we could have this, and this kind of number.
Sure.
And related to world language, so we have the addition of French, which you'll have Spanish, and then being able to add more French. What I'd love to see is how can we get some Italian? So now when our 2-3 languages that are at the high school, how can we grow that through interest earlier? But that comes with staffing too, that we haven't been able to put forward, or we've had other needs that have been put forward about that too.
Well, 20% is a good increase in specials. So
it should make, and the health wellness is going to make a really big impact too, for sure. That addition really allows for more opportunities for our students, which we're excited about.
Well, I'd be curious to see what they're interested in.
Yeah, for sure.
How does that translate from, moving from the 0.4 to the FTE for the world language for French? Can every student who wants to take French or Spanish, as an elective, is that now available to them, or are we still having issues where it doesn't match up? What does that translate to in reality?
Yeah, I can ask Jen and Nick, that kind of data for that. I still think there are other, if you're music, chorus, other things that you're committed to, then that's when you have that.
In chorus, maybe
So that's where it comes
but,
for a conflict, but it does allow for a few more sections to be offered, so I can ask them. I should have brought that, but I know they presented it to me when we talked about it, but I didn't bring it forward here, but I can get that information.
Because I think
for
ultimately the goal should be every kid who wants to take a foreign language has access to it. And then obviously ultimately the goal should be that they can grow from this, they're not just taking the same semester over and over.
When you're changed to more, how many kids go from Mendon-Upton on a daily basis between Star, SI?
Do you know from the busing perspective?
Not off the top of my head. One bus that was this year. One-on-one type situation.
As you think of these, questions too, we're taking notes and we'll look that up too, but, we can get that info too, so if things come up, or if you read background notes, you're like, hey, how many is that? We can always get that too.
Sure.
So if you let us know, we can find out from the building level where else we need to get that.
Okay. Sheldon,
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So that is what I had in regard to, some back to school changes and hiring and what's upcoming. Now, if I can move on to the next topic. topic, but that's all right. So I'd like to introduce some members of the Mendon-Upton Community Project. So we have a few members here. It's a newly formed 403C group called the Mendon-Upton Community Project. We have a couple of members who are here tonight. We have Bill Casey, who is the president, and Nicole Casello, the vice president. All right. If you want, you could come up right over here. We'll put the camera on you, and because that won't scare you at all. What they're going to do, we just asked, because there's a newly formed community group and who'll be, working to support the schools. They'd like to give just a brief presentation, but we wanted to kind of bring them in so you have a face with a name. So I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Cohen, and thank you, school committee members, for the opportunity to present our mission for our group today. Mendon-Upton Community Project consists of town residents that have continued supporters of community improvement, such as youth coaches, community board members, educators within MURSD, volunteers, and also parents. Our mission is simply to work in partnership with the community and the administration at MURSD to improve playing conditions and also equitable access to athletic facilities for all residents of Mendon and Upton. As Dr. Cohen said, we'd love to come back and share our plans. As we get updates, you're welcome to join our Facebook page and see updates there, or feel free to email us directly, and we'd be happy to answer any questions or comments. And we can answer a few questions if you'd like today.
Do you have any projects in mind?
Yes, so basically starting here at the school, facility upgrades, outdoor facility upgrades for, there's no track, there's no, turf, there's no outdoor basketball hoops, there's a lot of things that can help out youth-wise, school-wise, phys ed-wise, that, phys ed class wants do on the grass, they're gonna walk the school circle, the sidewalk. If you had a basketball hoop, they could play basketball, just things like that, that just improving the whole upgrade of the whole facility.
Also, as a community member, I'm also a parent, but also by the time something may get realized, my children will be out of school. I will be just a resident looking to be part of a lovely grounds where I could walk or have my children go play basketball or things like that. So we really do believe that it extends beyond just children at school during school time and supporting them, but it really is something we want to be proud of as community members. When we go to other towns, we visit other towns, we want to also be proud of what we have here as resources. So it's a collective mission that everyone sort of has come together and sort of feel the same way about it, and we'd like to share that mission with you as well.
And work with everyone.
And, yes.
It's very good. I'm glad it's much wider than I thought.
Great.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Thank you
All
for the
right, thank
opportunity.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Last update we have a state budget update. So Jay, you want to come up and give us an overview of the latest news on the state budget?
Hi, everybody. Your summer's going well. So I sent out some information previously, probably about a week ago. The governor signed the budget like 8 days ago, so right on time, only a month late. The net result of the state budget is that we did get basically double the increase per student in Chapter 70. So instead of getting 62,000, we're getting, 120,000 or something like that. And we got transportation reimbursement originally was reduced from level funding in the governor's budget. The legislature brought it back to level funding as far as on the state level. Again, that's determined on what we report on the end of the year report that we turn in. I do it usually in September, and it's a percentage of that. But we did get an increase in that as well because it's back to around level funding. Charter school tuition went up a little bit, so did the reimbursement, so it kind of netted out itself. The bottom line is that our revenue budget is going to increase by about $170,000. The reason for that is we also used to we have for many, many years run a vision program that we provided services to other school districts. The people worked for us, but they went out and provided services to other districts. It became apparent as last year went on that we were barely breaking even, and we're probably going to lose money on that program this year, so we decided to not do it anymore because there's no point. We reallocated one of the staff people to do our reading specialist stuff, which eliminated a contracted position. The other person went to work for another school district where she had been solely providing services. She never worked for us at all. She just was our employee. We also have the shared technology position that we're doing with the town of Upton, and they're picking up a cost of that. So that's kind of the offset. In other words, state aid's up about $210,000, but because of these adjustments, our net's going to be about $170,000. But there's been a corresponding reduction on the expenditure side as well. That should flatten that out. Beyond that, the expenditure side, we're still trying to finalize positions that are being hired. I'm still trying to get a final roster from Norfolk Aggie. I just got something end of last week that gave me a list, but then I found out we had another student, not of ours, but from another district, because we also coordinate transportation for 11 districts now as well through the Superintendent's Consortium. That's been a fairly, from when we certified the budget in March until now, that budget is for Norfolk Aggie is going up almost $100,000 because we had 4 additional students go. So we had to absorb that within the expenditure side as well. Out-of-district tuition there's still a couple of variables. So there's still some things in play, and hopefully it will all get finalized in the next week or two. But as I always tell you, things change every week throughout the entire school year. So we're going to lock into a budget, and then we have to deal with whatever happens after that. The budget as it is from the state, we're going to have to recertify our budget to reflect the additional Chapter 70 in transportation. The town's assessments will not change at all. Nothing has changed on the minimum contribution, so nothing changes for them. It's mostly what we have for district provided revenue and state revenue. And then we'll go through a line item budget on the expenditure side as well, so you can kind of see where that translates out. I think we had said in the notes, right now, we're still on the positive side, revenue to expenditures for FY23. That's a good thing. Generally, this time of year, you want to be on the positive side. Once the last few positions finalized, I'm sure we're still going to be in good shape. And we'll see where it goes from there. Beyond that, I see a question, so I'm going to let you ask questions. That's all right, I'm all set.
All right, it's not really a budget question.
Oh, phew. The answer is absolutely.
The collaborative vision program, can you just
What was it?
What is that?
So there are services that certain students need that are on IEPs related to vision. We have for many, many years run this collaborative program where we had one full-time employee that half of her job was providing vision services, and a few of them were in our district, but she also went and serviced students in other districts. I believe the towns that were involved at the end were Douglas, Milford, and that may have been it. But at one point, we were providing services to 7 or 8 different districts through these employees, and they would pay us for those services. So you always saw on our revenue sheet, vision program, we would have a revenue side of around $75,000. Sometimes it was more because you really don't know what you're going to get for billing until you see what services are being provided. Ultimately, it had dwindled down to where we were just doing these 2 districts, and we had 2 employees. One was part-time. Well, both of them were at 0.5 on vision services. But it became apparent that we were going to end up spending more to run this program that we were going to take in from the districts that we were providing the services to. So one of them was Milford. Milford hired the person that we employed who only worked in Milford. That person is now, I believe, Milford's employee. The other person is full-time with us and always was, but we reallocated her other vision service side. She'll still do a little bit for a student that may need it, but we don't have that many that need those services. I want to say there was maybe 2 last year. But we also, she's a certified reading specialist, and we needed that because we were contracting it out, so we reallocated her that and eliminated the contract cost. So it's just been a shuffle.
So the kids who were receiving services will still continue to.
Oh, yes,
receive services
yes,
from the same
absolutely.
person, like that won't impact
No,
them. Okay,
no.
that was really my question.
No, we're not, these are required services, and if we have more students to come in, we will do what we
Yeah, I
have to
didn't
do
know if
to
there was a
provide.
turnover or something.
No, but it had reduced a lot, that's the thing.
Got it, thank you.
Other questions? It's pretty simple right now, I think. I mean, now that we have a state budget, I think we're, we can sort of finalize things. Great. That was easy.
Thank you. All right. So that's all that I had.
All right, sounds good. All right, on to new business. Mr. Clements is gonna talk to us about the school calendar or 2023 graduation dates. Venue.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. As Thea said, happy summer, and thanks for the chance to be here. Wanted to come tonight to talk a little bit about graduation 2023 and bring you into a conversation I began having with class officers for our rising seniors right after the last graduation. This was I think this was my 19th graduation, 18th or 19th that I've been involved with in my 23rd year. And I've got to say the last three, since we moved outside, have been some of my favorite graduation ceremonies. I think part of it's the context and that we were able to pull it off amidst COVID and all the challenges, but moving outside has been amazing. At the same time, this past year in particular, we noticed some challenges. So I wanted to walk you through what we've talked about with class officers and what we're proposing to do for this coming year. I wanted to put a picture up of the graduation because I love being outside so much. It's been such a great transition for us, and it's been a team effort. Bill in particular, I want to shout out. It's great that I have a public moment to do this. Bill has been lining our pods on the field for each of the past 3 years, pro bono, showing up late into the evening, mosquito bites, bringing the whole family out to draw the pods and number the pods, and it's been organized and safe and a different vibe than the previous years when we were inside the gym. But we started to notice some challenges, and we were worried about the ability to replicate how awesome it's been year after year. So the first challenge we talked about is just, I don't know that anyone's going to feel comfortable getting 1,500 people in the gym in the coming years. We're past those times right now. And frankly, I'm more excited to have it outside. It's been a better venue for it. So then we look at the challenge of unpredictable weather. I first thought about this meeting the Friday before graduation when at like 4:35 in the morning, the first principal in my Metro West email chain reached out because they had Friday night graduation and said, "What are you doing? Are you moving inside? Are we going to make the switch?" These are all people who have outside graduation ceremonies that were pretty nervous about the unpredictable weather on the Friday night, the day before our graduation. Thankfully, ours was perfect, so we didn't have to worry about it. Typically, when you're moving inside from an outdoor venue, you have to then limit the number of tickets. So you're going from, every family getting 8 to 10 tickets, and now you're telling them you can bring 3 people, and you've got to make decisions. It's not a spot we wanted to be in. When we talked about moving outdoors with this group earlier, we talked about having the rain date on the next day, and you can do that, so you can push it out a day at the same time. But then what if it's still lousy weather? And Bill could probably tell you just from lining the fields, they get well used, as you know from the work with the community group. There's going to be muddy, giant muddy sections, especially around the goal mouths of the lacrosse field. And I'm imagining people dressed up in their graduation vests walking out to that field into a muddy section. Additionally, beyond the weather and the unpredictability of it all, and I should say too, we're limited in the number of days you can postpone because the chairs we rent need to go back, so they're picked up on Monday. So we were looking at the inevitability of you could be having a ceremony out in the rain, which I'm sure everyone would be good sports about. Weather's weather, but it changes the event considerably. We also noticed it's just challenging for people who have accessible seating needs to make their way to the fields. It meets all the codes, that's not the issue, but if you've got 1,500 people out on the fields, it's challenging to get them out on there in a way that feels safe and comfortable when you're meeting the needs of everybody. So Amy Bazell, our assistant, has done amazing work coordinating the families and talking with them and finding a way to meet their needs. But we still always felt we need to double and triple check and say, does this work for you? Is this all right? Is there anything else we can do? The venue worked really well. I showed you the front seats in this picture. Another challenge was the seats way to the back. You could be a considerable distance away from the stage. Part of that was the way we had it set up with pods, but even as you start to put the seats closer together, you're still going to have people who are looking quite a distance to find their kiddos up on the bleachers. The noise along Pleasant Street gets louder the closer you are to the street, so we had heard from people, not with complaints, but just letting us know the sound equipment needed to be upgraded in order to make sure that they weren't hearing the passing traffic come by. And again, just the line of vision. So we started to talk about what our options were. We walked out to the field with our senior class officers and said, what do you want to do? Do you want to look at the Hanover Theater? Hanover was the first one that we talked about because we have many colleagues who have used it and just had great reports about it. They were very much open to it, and so we talked about planning a visit this summer. In order to visit the Hanover, you can get a view of some of the, it's really an elegant location. So we did a tour. Our students were all working their summer jobs, so they weren't able to join us, but we were really impressed with what they had to show us. Seating capacity goes up from what we have now to about 2,000. It's probably more like 2,200, but I want to be on the conservative side. That's a considerable upgrade for us. So we see ourselves being able to meet just about everybody's needs. We have had years in the past where people request 40 tickets, so that's not going to happen. But I can see us realistically looking at 10 plus tickets per family, which is awesome. The sight lines to the graduates, despite the fact that we have more people at the venue, are awesome. The kids would be on stage, and so you'd be able to see all the students really, really well. The accessible seating issues are resolved. This is a venue that needs to be prepared for a variety of different needs, and they have plans in place in order to do that. We talked about different scenarios. The elegance of the venue just stands out. It feels special. We always talk about graduation. I'm biased, but it's one of those life events, right? It's one of those, there's weddings, there's graduations. We'll stop there, right? Like they're really stick a marker in time moments, and we wanted to have that feeling of being elegant. It definitely has that. We were excited to hear they're building an outdoor pavilion. So if you've been to the Hanover before, you know it's along Main Street. Right now they're in the midst of construction, so they're building a pavilion that has kind of patios, seating areas, and then also a stage. So our guests could gather beforehand, before it opens, and also take pictures afterwards. The support staff is included, so we have 3 police details, EMTs on site, and as well as people to help you find your seats. I checked with Mr. Harding and told him, this is what we're thinking about. When he heard about the pit and the acoustics and the pit for the musicians to perform, that's pretty exciting. It's right in front of the stage. It does drop during the performance, which provides a pretty special experience for our student musicians who are not graduating. They were able to accommodate a date for us, so that's a Friday evening, which we were excited about. We had a number of people, I think some at this table here, who were rushing from graduation to graduation parties that they were hosting at their house that same day. People are in town for a short period of time, so it allows you to have that Friday night to do the celebration and then clears the weekend afterwards for parties and celebrations. There's rehearsal availability, so they allow us in the day of the event, which we're excited about. Kids get to come in, figure out where they're going to sit on stage. Speakers get to practice, and the band gets to practice as well. And the last one, probably the most important one, is that we reached out with the follow-up report to our senior class officers and say, here's what we found, what do you think? And I was expecting, I don't know, maybe we're going to schedule another visit, and very quickly they were all over it and said, no, absolutely, we're interested in favor of it. So that was obviously a big plus. So proposing a change to the Hanover Theater, not because of frustration with the current venue, but just because I know we are out there every year, one of us is going to get rained on, and to meet all the needs of everyone who's going to be attending, we feel like this could be a better solution. So that's the proposal. Happy to answer any questions.
What is the overall cost versus renting chairs and hosting?
Sure, yeah, the overall cost is $10,300, which was less than I expected, actually. When you take a look at the cost that we have just for chair rentals and equipment and all the things, we found ourselves at $7,300 already, and that's before I calculated in the overtime cost of our phenomenal custodial crew, all of whom show up that day after graduation to break down chairs back in the So add that in, and the delta's much smaller.
I can speak when I was a building administrator, I mean, we had to shift from the gym to the Hanover. And so having run that back end side of just working with them and with the students and how it was just extremely well received by families because we weren't sure because it was a change from what we had done for a long time and just the elegance of the venue really stood out to everybody and then it's kind of no turning back, you know, it's great. Right on Main Street, West.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, and there's a parking garage right across the street, so, and, you know, now there's actually more parking around the corner too that they've built out as Westwood's expanding, so it's not too hard to get to.
That was a question I had, a concern I had about parking. It's a Friday night, so people don't want to be stressed coming in, but
Yeah. You just go in.
we do big events all the time. There's 500 spots in the lot across
Yeah.
from the Hanover and then Bowler Park. I think there's 3 other lots within.
I think it's awesome. I don't think there's probably any other venue within 50 miles that's, like, you don't want huge, you don't want tiny.
Did you mention the AC?
Oh,
Yes.
And so, you know, and then it's just like the nice working AC, you know, and the comfy seats, so it's just like, oh, you know, you bring your grandparents and they're just like, this is lovely, you know. It's just- everyone's so happy, so, yeah, it's great. Can't forget it. Yeah, I know, right?
Any other questions? All right, can we get a motion to change the date of graduation on the school calendar from Saturday, June 3rd, back to Friday, June 2nd?
Motion to change the date. So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, great, it's passed. 4-0.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. So Maureen, I think I'll turn it back over to you for the school choice openings for this coming school year.
Yeah, so basically, we report out on the number of openings that we have for school choice. We do it, you have to vote to certify that you want to accept school choice. So you did that back in June. And so then we give the numbers at that point. And then what we do just leading up to school, we do at this so people know. So I'm just gonna read through what those are. At Clough, we have 2 openings in kindergarten, 1 in 1st grade, 3 in 2nd grade, and 1 in 3rd grade. At Misco Hill Middle School, we have 3 openings in grade 5, 6 in grade 6, 8 in grade 7, and 5 in grade 8. And at Nipmuc, we have 2 in grade 11. So, need to do for that. And so we've had some cases where people have put in their applications already. And so they'll do a lottery if there's more spots than there are availability, and then we'll let the parents know, families know, and then within the week, so then people will be able to hear soon and know what the plan is for the next school year, so I appreciate that.
Great, cool. I think you and I talked about earlier, that this is basically the net openings, right? So
Yes,
some you
this is
fill,
what we have
sometimes you
open right now.
yeah, sometimes you had kids leave, so.
Yeah.
They went up and
Yeah,
down.
today, actually, earlier today, I had 5 openings in grade 6, but one person who had been given the spot prior left, so we have an opening, they
Yep.
didn't take it yet. So that changed right before I came forward today. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve it?
Yeah, I don't know if we have to, but why don't we do it, just to be sure?
Okay.
Okay.
We put it right, it never hurts.
School choice opening
Yeah.
numbers. Good share.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep,
I'm safely sorry.
absolutely.
All right.
Never done that before, so.
I think we voted earlier.
Great.
Yeah,
Too.
last one.
All right, other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours of the posted meeting? I don't have any. Anybody else? Okay, move on. Correspondence.
So we've received a couple thank you cards between our June meetings to the main office, or some emails just from some of our retirees, thanking for the clock that came from school committee. So just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you. All right, and so future agenda items, recertification of the budget, an overview of the Spanish exchange program for this school year, presentation approval of the 2022-2023 district action plans, and then the FY22 MURSD budget closeout. So those will all be coming up soon. If there's nothing else, we can take a motion to adjourn.
Been on a roll, Sean, you can go.
I did all the motions. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?